What is up, folks? It's Mr. Walker coming to you with our third lesson that I am recording today. Really, probably your first one if this is coming to you at different days. But you know what I mean. All right, let's get into it. We are talking about basic angle pairs. So, to follow up on our discussion about angles, we got to make sure that we understand these couple of pairs of angles that'll help us set up easier equations. So, let's talk about our first one. First one that we're going to be talking about are angles that we call vertical angles. Let's pull that up real quick. All right, so a vertical angle, this relationship is easy for us to remember. It looks like this kind of configuration here with the examples. So the opposite and congruent angles are formed by intersecting lines. So if you have two intersecting lines, the angle that is opposite that angle on the other side of those two lines is congruent. So for this, angles 1 and 3 are vertical. Is these two, the way you look at it, is one, do they share a vertex? And two, are they not directly next to each other? You don't want them to be directly next to each other. Like 1 and 2 are technically next to each other, 3 and 4, 1 and 4 are, but 1 and 3 aren't right next to each other. Okay. Now, the other example of vertical are 4 and 2. Again, not directly next to each other. They're across their vertex, and their sides are made up of opposite and intersecting lines. Okay? So keep that in mind. This will help us set up with certain things in the future. Now, because these are talking about congruent for this configuration, that means not only are 1 and 3 vertical, they're also congruent. So they're the same in every way. Same thing with 2 and 4. Same in every way. All right. Next one we got, we're talking about adjacent angles. Okay. Now, the word adjacent means next to. So, adjacent angles are coplanar angles that share a vertex and a side with no common interior points. So, basically, we got two angles that are next to each other. Now, if any part of one angle is inside of the other one, that doesn't mean that they're adjacent. That means that they're inside of each other, which is completely different. So, in this little configuration we got here, angles 1 and 2 are adjacent. 1 is also adjacent with 4. Now, over on the other side, we got 3 is also adjacent with 2, and it's also adjacent with 4. So, with adjacent angles, this doesn't necessarily head up anything in terms of size. It's just telling you that in terms of the position, these guys are next to each other. So sometimes you might see that when you have to set up different sets of information into an equation. All right. Next one we got coming through is complementary angles. Okay. Now, this one actually does have a specific number associated with this. So keep that in mind. So, complementary angles are two angles whose measure have a sum of 90. Remember, sum means that you're adding, 90 degrees is what they're adding to. Each angle is called the complement of the other. So, you got two different ways that you can see this. See over here with this angle, these two are both inside of this right angle, which means that angles 1 and 2 are complementary angles. Alternatively, if you have two angles that are separate, but they both add up to 90, that also means that they are complementary. So A and B, they're both complementary to each other. So complementary, you're thinking 90, all right? That's a specific number that goes with it. Complement 90. Now, the other set of angles that we're going to talk about are supplementary angles. Supplementary angles also add up, but this is a bigger thing that they add up to. So supplementary angles are two angles whose measure have a sum of 180. Each angle is called the supplement of the other. So, in our example down here, we got angles 1 and 2. If they're both on a straight line, remember straight lines, those are straight angles. So that means that they add up to 180. So, 1 and 2 are supplementary. You also got over here angles A and B. Those are both 90-degree angles. 90 plus 90 is 180. So that means that angle A and B are both 180. Not 180, supplementary. Sorry. All right, last thing that we got is this definition for linear pair. Linear pair is pretty linked up with supplementary, but essentially it's talking about adjacent and supplementary angles. So if you have a linear pair, that means that you got two angles that are next to each other, like how these are with 1 and 2, and they both add up to 180. All right, so a couple of visual cues that should help you out with remembering these things. When you have the word complementary, how we see here, that C in complementary is kind of like the top part of a 90. Okay. The S for supplementary, if you took that apart and drew a line connecting the top and the bottom of your S, you'd have an 8, and that's for 180. It sometimes helps some people to remember it. If it doesn't help you out and you're just good with remembering the vocab, okay, it's cool. Got you. Now, we got some practice going on here. Let's take a look. Okay. On here, we got this diagram that's going to help us be able to name certain angle pairs. So either they're vertical angles, supplementary angles, complementary angles. You got to be able to identify that. So make sure that you look at those angles, compare them to what we have in our pictures, as well as what they are, so that you can be able to tell what is what. Then we have two examples on the bottom. These both are written out in words, so you have to make sure that you go through, pick apart what we're talking about, okay? It says one of them is two pairs of angles that are supplementary, the other two are complementary. Remember, supplement 180, complement 90. All right, pause the video, work it out. I'm going to catch you in a few. All right, what's up? Hopefully you paused it. Let's get into it, all right? First off, we're talking about what are ABD and DBE. ABD is this angle right here. DBE is this right here. Now, these two aren't inside of each other. They are sharing a side and they're sharing a vertex with B. That means that these two are adjacent. Now, some of these answers do have multiple things. Like our next one, we're talking about CBE, so that's this right here, and EBD. Neither one of them are inside of each other. They also share a side and a vertex. Now, if you actually look at the configuration of the way that these two look, this is a 90-degree angle. This time, it's okay for you to assume that these are 90 because of the way that they look. These are adjacent as well as complementary. Now, the next one we got angle FBA, which is this one here, and DBC. Now, they both share a vertex, but they're not next to each other. And when you look at the sides, those sides are going in opposite directions. They're made up of this opposite direction with these lines of these sides and these two lines with these sides. Since they're both going in opposite directions and they're intersecting, these two are going to be vertical angles. Okay. Now, what we got going on here, we got two angles. ABD and DBE are supplementary. So that means that they both add up to 180. If the measure of ABD is 3x plus 12 and DBE is 7x minus 32, find ABD. This means that we have to go through, set up our equation. So that's equal to 180. So here's our equation. We got our two parts added up and they're equal to 180. Now I added them because supplementary angles add to 180. Keep that in mind. I start off, I got my equation set up. I start combining my like terms combined, boom. Then I go through, I get my x by itself. Then I'd have to divide by that 10, and that's how I get x equals 20. But are we done though? No, it says find ABD, not find x. So we don't stop here. Let's keep going. So I take that x, I plug that back into the equation that I got. Well, not the equation, the expression for ABD, which is 3x plus 12. I got 3 times 20. That's 60. 60 plus 12, 72. Boom. There we go. Now, just like how we did this one, the next one we set up also like that. We got two angles, they're adding up. Now, this one adds up to complementary. Sorry, not adds up. These two are complementary, so they add up to 90. My fault. Sorry, y'all. So we got our two angles here 5y plus 1 and 3y minus 7 add up to 90. I got my equation set up. Let's combine the like terms. Let's get the x's by itself. Let's get the x's by itself. There we go. So our y here is 12. Now I went through, I combined my like terms. I started to simplify. I got y by itself. That's 12. But are we done? No. They want the measure of angle ABD, which means that we got to take that 12 and spin it back into 5y plus 1, which will make this 5 times 12 plus 1 is 61, son. And now we're done. Great to see you. Hopefully you have a good day and catch you later.